School assignment policy. We have materials in our packet. We have proposed drafts from both Dave and Mike.
I'd like to make a motion, if I may. I'd like to make a motion. I mean, I wanted some public input. I'm not sure if we have any. We can discuss that, but I don't think it's going to be possible to have a forum before this because we want to get this done by the end of the year. It's what I wanted, but I'd like to make a motion to accept the JCB policy as the proposed draft of 6/1/12 that I submitted, and it was read, I think, in its entirety last time at the last meeting. I'd like to make a motion to accept that as our revised JCB policy.
Second. Discussion.
Well, yeah, I think, again, I think that we need something so that we assure that we are following the contract with Manchester, and that's what I wanted to do with this policy. We have two other policies mandated by state law that allow for things to happen, for reassignment to happen if there's a problem somewhere, whether it's educational hardship or otherwise. Attorney Graham said in the verbatim notes that we have those other two policies for assignment of a student, and I quote, "for whatever reason it isn't working and the standard is not working." So in other words, those policies, JCA and JEC, are set up for if something's not working with the student, and so we change the assignment. I think we need a policy for specifically for our students that go to high school, and I think this allows for it to follow the contract with Manchester, and so yeah. So.
Okay.
Well, I support Mike's draft. I think he's actually improved it since I made a draft, and I agree that there will be, currently there is 3 policies because we do have a JCB now. And I think this does follow the contract while allowing us to exercise all the rights within the contract. And it does provide a one at a time consideration. It does provide for a reason for that reassignment. And I think it's the policy that will best serve the students of Brookside going forward. Thank you.
Formulating them, so if you have
Okay,
something
yeah.
first.
Now, just for clarification, it's been a while since we talked. We do not need JCB, correct? We could just use JCA. The one that we're currently.
JCA and JEC are required by law.
And we're currently utilizing JCA.
Or JEC.
Or JEC.
Either one.
Or JCB. Because we still currently have a JCB policy.
We currently have it, but did we make a decision to go with JCA?
Well, the discussion was, and I think Phil could confirm that at this point, a student could file under any of our policies for consideration. So, because we never killed JCB, we just kind of moved our interest toward JCA and developed criteria. But currently, we have 3 policies.
Well, you just clarified the point I'm trying to make. You can, a student can file under either.
Yes. Three ways.
But my feeling is if we don't have a JCB or a new JCB in place, it's not covering, the other 2 policies cover situations that aren't working out. And I think we need something specifically. Those don't really cover a student is assigned to high school, something that goes with the contract that we have with Manchester. Those two apply for any grade, any student, anytime if there's a problem. And reassignment is necessary. This would be specifically for our students in Hooksett that are going on to high school, and it allows also for following the contract with Manchester, as it says in her first paragraph, and it's just something to add to the adherence of the contract with Manchester in my eyes.
I agree with Mike, and I think that as representatives of the public, it's our job to give as much latitude as we can under that contract to our high school students. We pay that money to Manchester, and Manchester agreed to those terms in the contract, and nothing in Mike's proposal violates the contract. So I think it's incumbent upon us to have as much latitude as possible when people want to consider other high schools. And I think that is why that contract is written.
Can I ask why you don't think JCA offers the same?
I think JCA is for when there's a problem, when there's something that is not in the best interest of the student happening. As the beginning of JCA says, it's when there's doesn't say the word problem, but when the assignment of the school is not in the best interest of the child, that's when we have that kicks in, and I think that policy is for that. For not in the best interest of the child. We're not talking that Manchester, we're not saying Manchester is not in the best interest, but for specific cases to follow the contract, that's what we're saying. So I don't think JCA covers this because that's when there's something that's not in the best interest of the child. Whereas the other one, JEC, if there's ever an educational hardship, manifest educational hardship, that covers that. But I don't think either one covers this situation with our students.
I think it's necessary because JCA is solely the decision of the superintendent and cannot be overridden by this board. And I'm okay with that. But I think we do have to have another policy that can allow this board to take action if the public wants to make their case that for whatever reason they disagree with that decision under JCA. I think they should be able to have a hearing with us because we are the elected officials of the citizens. And I think that we should be able to have that latitude and represent them with the contract, within the contract, to allow them to go if that's what the vote of this board is. So I think there is reason to have both. Because on the other hand, if this board were in a mindset to allow nobody and be voting everybody out, the superintendent would step in and they could go to him and he could allow this and the board could not upset that decision. So I think it offers a balance for people and it allows them two options, really. There's also the other JCE, but for the most part, the two options. Thank you.
I just think that, I've been on record as to what my concerns are. It's not in disagreement with the contract or not. My concerns are more philosophically whether, really we should be practicing school choice and with the research that I did. On the flip side of it, I think that we have a lot of important things to move forward with, and I don't necessarily want to tie that up. I'm actually more comfortable though with the JCA, the one that we had instructed specifically because it didn't have the criteria with it, and those are my thoughts on it.
No, go ahead. I'm still.
Well, I was just going to comment that it isn't really a choice between JCA or JCB. We can have both. We do have both as it is. And I think we had a really good discussion with Gordon Graham, and he did not refer to this as choice. He did say that he didn't recommend it, but he's been on record as not recommending it for a long time. He also said that there are many schools in the state that do the same thing. And the other issue that came up, and I had made the mistake of referring to lawsuit, would we face a lawsuit? And someone corrected me and said, no, if there was a problem, this would go to the Board of Ed to be decided. If Manchester wanted to raise an objection or something, there is a process in place for them to object and the Board of Ed to hear it and so forth. So I don't think that we're at a point where we're having to make a choice. I think we're adding an option. And I think particularly in the environment that we're in right now, being along in our contract, being some of the issues that are in Manchester, I think we need to be able to have as much flexibility as we can within the contract. Thank you.
One more comment too. I think we need this in addition to JCA, because this just adds a little bit more flexibility of the superintendent still makes the recommendation, but we have a little bit more flexibility in that decision. And I think that this, and JCA also allows, it's a little different with the payment. On JCA, it's the superintendents work out the tuition between the two schools is what that law says. They work out between the two superintendents. This follows what we would pay to Manchester anyways, and as Dave said, many schools use this who don't have a high school in their town. So I think we need this in addition to a JCA. I'm not saying get rid of JCA either. We need to have that by law, but I'm saying we need both. My idea.
If I could just add one thing to that, Mike, I talked to a school board member from Londonderry who has their own high school, and they send students to other schools if they feel that's in the best interest of the school of the student. And he seemed to think, and I know it's one school board I'm talking about, but it wasn't a real big issue for them. If that was the best situation, that's what they did. So, thank you.
Have we had this reviewed at all either by, I know are we members of the School Board Association as far as the policy portion where we can have them look at it? They have a policy membership. Are we members with that?
They supply us with sample policies. I don't know whether they review policies. I don't know.
From my understanding, if we're, if we are engaged with them on that end, like if we pay for that support, I guess we can't get that support. I'm just wondering if we should have it reviewed where, apparently, we went into writing this the first time and people really had issues with how it was written, and obviously there was a mistake made at one point. I just wonder if we really should have this more scrutinized over somebody who writes these professionally before we vote. And the reason why I'm not worried about the timing is because we do have something in place to continue so that we're not holding up kids for next year. And although I still feel the same way about the school choice issue, it becomes really how much is it a risk. That's more what I'm hearing about. And I know everyone practices. Does that make it necessarily right? No. Will eventually something will come up? Probably. Hopefully it's not our district. What's the risk there? Does it seem the risk is as high as maybe I thought it was in the beginning? But I still don't want to move rapidly forward without really making sure that we've got a really good policy in hand. I'd be more inclined to use the policies that have already been written by law and take the time to send this out to either Attorney Graham or, I don't know if he really writes policies, or to the School Board Association, who is experienced with writing policy, so maybe get a little more direction on it.
I can answer the question. I contacted them. They don't review policy. Like Phil said, they will give you sample policies and advice about how to create a policy, but he was very clear that they would not review and give an opinion on a policy that we had written. And I believe Mr. Graham said when he started speaking at the last meeting that he had read this policy because it was forwarded to him. He didn't raise any objections, as I'm sure he would have, being our attorney and us having an hour conversation about this subject. And frankly, the language that was objected to in the previous version of this policy was much more restrictive language. This is is not that type of restrictive language. So I think between him looking at it and it being less restrictive, that I think we're okay to go ahead with this. Like I said, we had a lengthy discussion with him about this very subject.
Well, I have a couple of concerns. One is, it was my understanding when we first got into this issue a while ago, that the board had made a decision that they were making their decisions based on one of the policies. And then, I'll say it came to our attention that there was a choice. So, I honestly don't like, I'm all for choice. I don't want to go on record as saying I'm not for choice. But when you have policies, I think you need to have one policy for the issue at hand. I also have concerns with the policy that has a motion on the floor that the superintendent makes the recommendation and then the school board is the final approval. And with JCA, the superintendent makes the decision. With the current JCB, board makes the decision. And I think it's one or the other. I don't like it to be one decision and then, here comes the board changing. So I think it should either be the superintendent making the decisions, that, the board is going with JCA, or the student picks JCA, the superintendent makes a decision, and that's it. And again, or there's the current JCB that allows for the board. Those are my concerns. Okay?
Well, I appreciate that, man, but the reason I put that in there that way is because if I thought there'd be a better, I want the professional educator and Dr. Littlefield to be able to look at this case and give us his recommendation, as we do with many things, hiring people or anything else. We take his recommendation and then we vote on it. When he has staff nominations or anything else, we take his recommendation, we can vote on it, we can go against his recommendation. So I think this adds a little bit more flexibility for folks, instead of us the board having to hear these cases and why they think it's in the best interest of the child. I think Dr. Littlefield is more capable of doing that, giving us his recommendation, and then we have the final recommendation, because we can then, if there is a extenuating circumstances or something, we can act on that recommendation. But I like him to make the recommendation, but I don't think he should be the sole. We already have a policy where he is the sole decision maker, and that's JCA.
I would comment too, Dana, you said you'd like to have one policy. Well, we really can't. We have to have a minimum of two. We have to have JCA, we have to have JCE. The other thing that I would like to point out, in looking at the contract here, it says, just to abbreviate, with the exception of those students who petition a sending district school board to attend a different school and are approved by such attendance on a case-by-case basis. I think that they are referring here to our board to make that decision. And I would offer that, again, going back to the balance issue, that, I'm not saying that Phil would not make good decisions, but we're making policy here for whoever eventually has Phil's job. If we'd had someone in that position who was adamant that no one was meeting the criteria, this board would be powerless to intercede in that. And we wouldn't be able to do anything about that. And I think that's where the balance comes. And likewise, if this board was adamant about approving no one, the superintendent could step in and hear that, and if it fit his criteria, he would be able to approve it. So for me, I think it serves the public better that they have the two avenues to look at, because both of the makeups change. This board will change, and at some point Phil will retire and we will hire somebody new, and we will have another superintendent. So we have to make policy for those eventualities because sooner or later things will change. So that's why I think the balance works real well.
Any other comments? Okay, with that, we have a motion. All in favor of approving the,
Can I interrupt just for a minute, Dana? I was just wondering if Tricia, Mrs. Corcus, felt that this time she was going to have to abstain because she missed part of the conversation. Because personally, I would rather take some more time if she has more questions so that she'd be able to vote, because I think this is an important issue. Can I ask her that question?
I'm fine with that. We've got the motion on the floor is for Mike's proposed draft dated 6/1/12, which is the second page of the attachment. So the motion is to approve Mike's version of JCB.
I only have one question. Were there any other motions about accepting a different plan before that?
No.
I'm all set. Thank you, David.
Okay. With that, all in favor of approving the revision to policy JCB, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I was.
Could we have a roll call, please?
Sure.
Tricia Corcus opposed.
Yay.
Nay.
Nay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Madam Taker, just so that it's for the record, my opposal is just due to the fact that I'm more comfortable with using the JCA. I think it gives enough latitude for making decisions for the families coming up next year.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is network security.
Actually, could I make a motion? I would like to make a motion for that the calendar year 2012, 2013, we continue to use JCA as our high school assignment policy.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I'd like to speak to my motion. The reason that I would like to make this, after talking to a variety of people about what is going on in Manchester, I think giving the superintendent the ability to make decisions in the best interest of the child is our best bet because of the situation in Manchester, and not really knowing, though they have a budget, what does that look like in each of the high schools in our town. And while we watch the high schools situation in Manchester, we can also be looking, if this board so chooses, a JCB or a different policy where we're not making a decision under the gun, but there are families that are making their decisions for their children entering school in September of 2013.
And Mrs. Corcus, perhaps you missed the part of the discussion, but we have to have JCA under the law. And I think Phil's laid out some pretty fine criteria. So really, as much as we may be concerned about the budget, I think Phil has to look at his criteria and put his blinders on and say, I'm going to approve based on my criteria or I'm not. And I think he will do that. I have no doubt about that. But we don't have to pick one policy over the other. That was part of the discussion, that we currently have 3 policies that any citizen can file for reassignment under. What our motion was not to choose one, but was to revise policy JCB, which is a current policy of the school board. I just wanted to clear that up. Thank you.
When I said the budget constraints, I wasn't referring to Hooksett, I was referring to Manchester's.
Well, I think
Manchester will be severely understaffed, under-equipped, under everything, and it may not be in the best interest of a Hooksett student to go there.
if I may, that JCA would remain in place whether we had approved JCB or not, because we have to have it under the state law. And like I said, I think Phil's laid out a good criteria. If the budget causes something to happen with that affects that criteria, he is already set to make that decision. So it's not like we're giving up one by taking the other, and I don't think that the motion is actually valid because we are required by state law to have policy JCA. We could revise it, I believe, but I don't think we could ever get rid of it anyway. We'd be in violation of the state law.
You know, I don't disagree with you, Dave, that obviously we need JCA. Why I was intrigued by the motion is the board did support JCB, and I'm thinking, and I don't even know if this is a possibility, but if somebody were to submit a request to go to the school other than choice and maybe did not know which policy they should I'll say file under, they may ask, does the board support one or the other? And I don't know. I'm speculating, but I don't think it's out of line for the board to be on record as supporting one, where there's more than one, supporting one over the other. Mike?
I don't think legally we can vote to have JCA. We already have JCA. I don't see how we can do that. That's already there, set for certain criteria in the state law that says if there's an assignment to a school that is not in the best interest of the child, the superintendent has that power to change that assignment. That's not what we're dealing with here, really. I mean, I don't think that has anything to do with our policy for our high school students, because our policy for high school students, it's not for someone that is assigned to a school that is not in the best interest. It's made for a different situation than JCA. So I don't think you can vote to have it JCA or not. It's there.
I was recommending that we say we're going to continue to use JCA for the next calendar year to either send JCB to the policy committee, which is typically the avenue in which policies are created within the Hooksett School District. And that can go to that committee can look at it, it can go to the lawyer, and we're not under the gun rushing. So people whose children enter high school in September of 2013 know now what they need to do. And another reason that I was saying we should use that is in the best interest of the child means if the child intends to go to college and they want to take a foreign language in a school district that has no foreign language department, it's in the best interest of the child to go to a school that offers foreign languages. We're not going to go in 6 years and say, did y'all go to college? All they have to say is, I want to go to college, and they don't offer the foreign language that I have. I think that if we play with JCB, we're going to make, we as a school board have had enough heat about high school assignment policy, and when our high school of record town is in such financial turmoil on how they fund education, Hooksett getting picky about where we send our kids to high school right now is not a frugal use of our time when we're a district in need of corrective action, because we're a district in need. We need to be focusing on educating our students, not where are they going to go to high school. If it's in the best interest of the child, most people are going to give a solid case for in the best interest of the child.
Well, this board can't vote to say which policy we are going to use because those policies are available to the students and their parents. I would agree more with Dana. We could, if we wanted to make an opinion about which one we thought was best, but we cannot restrict right now. If somebody wants to file under JCB and come to this board and prove hardship, in my understanding and talking to Gordon, they have the right to do that. The only way that we could narrow it would be to invalidate JCB, leaving us two policies that are both required by the state. So the narrowest we could get it was JCE, JCA. And I think, even then we couldn't say we're only going to hear under JCA because that's why the state made the law, is so that we could do either one. The other thing is, if JCB has, first of all, I don't want to make a decision depending on how much heat the school boards have. We need to deliberate this until we come up with what's best. JCD has been talked about now for going on 8 months. I think we had an hour conversation with a lawyer. It's a one-page policy. I totally, agree if people want to vote against the policy, that's their right. But to say that at this point we're not sure about it or we don't really know what it means, I think is a problem with us as a school board, because by this point we should know what it means. We should be looking into this, and if we have questions, that's why I wanted Gordon to come in, is to answer all of those questions so that when we moved ahead, whichever way we voted, we wouldn't be left wondering. But that's what I'm still hearing, that we haven't really looked at it enough. Thank you.
Sorry, just one more comment. I don't think it's about us being picky about where we send our students to high school. I think it's about what's best for the students and the citizens of Hooksett. I think we need the policy because it's best for the students and the citizens of Hooksett, not what's best for Manchester or anywhere else. And the lawyer has looked at this a number of times in a couple meetings that I've had with him. And I think, again, I don't think you can have an affirmative for this motion to say there's a JCA because we have the JCA. I think we have to move forward with a different JCB if the one that I wrote isn't accepted. But that's all. I think it's about what's best for the students of Hooksett. That's all.
I can say I'm interpreting it as an endorsement. That's that motion. So I realize we couldn't vote to not have JCA, so we're not voting to have it because we have to have it. I look at it as an endorsement.
Okay, can you read the motion back, please? What the motion is?
Tricia moved that for the calendar year 2012-2013, we continue to use JCA as the high school assignment policy.
I think it's an unnecessary motion because we will, regardless if this is an up or down vote, the same thing will occur. I would also, I think, go back to procedures and rules, because if we're going to vote on this, shouldn't we put this on the agenda and discuss? If we're going to now endorse the policy, I think that's a little different than where we were at. And I don't really even mean to go there, because the yes or no, it's still the same result. And I don't want to try to encourage parents and tell them that in a blanket statement, we think that everybody that's going to apply has a best interest case instead of a manifest hardship or a hardship, because we don't know until the student applies. I think we should make them all aware of whatever their choices are, but we don't know that until, or at least until they talk to Phil and he understands what their concerns are. We don't know that.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of approving the motion as read, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Roll call, please.
Mike?